Oops.
Okay, this is the Conservation Commission meeting on Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 at 7:03. We'll do a roll call today. We have Carol Jordan, Bob Shabbat, Jackie Kulig, Nora Jones, Laura Rodriguez, and myself, Kathy Demers, present. Do I hear a motion to seat Nora?
I'll move that we seat Nora for Maryland.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Just put this down. Okay. Okay, approval of minutes of February 21st, 2024. Anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
I'll
Second?
second.
Okay, Nora, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I probably,
Abstained?
yeah, I
Go
probably
ahead.
need to abstain, I would think, because I wasn't.
You weren't seated.
Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
seated.
Okay. All right, Laura. So I'll just write that down. I'm also doing secretary duty. So I just remind people this wonderful position is also open for anybody who's interested. So, all right. And doesn't look like we have anybody from the public that's here to speak. Treasurer's report, Carol, want to give us any updates?
None, basically. The only difference is that we hope to be able to pay the $150 that we committed for the bird show with the library before the end of the fiscal year, which would leave us with an available balance of $755, which is plenty. And the end of the fiscal year is getting closer and closer. So we
Yeah, so we have $150 committed and we still have 755 to spend until the end of June, right?
that's assuming, yeah,
Yeah.
assuming but we discussed trying to get the bill, pay that in advance so we can take it out of this year's budget.
Okay, I think Nora can speak to maybe some of that when we get down to that portion of the agenda.
Yeah, well, we did talk with him about our library, with our library person too, and so, yeah.
Yeah, and just I like to make a note of this so we keep it in our minutes. ARPA 27 funds, we still have a current balance of $3,174, and it is, Carol, you were right, is 58 cents that's left. We discussed that last time, so we'll just note that in the minutes. Let's start with some new business support for farmland protection. And the reason I added this to the agenda was at a request from Jackie. Jackie had noted that state statutes require towns to give farm property tax exemptions on tractors and other machinery, but it's optional for towns to give a tax exemption for farm buildings. And maybe Jackie, you want to speak to this? Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so I was just, we had talked about recommendations for the POCD at the last meeting. I think this would be a good thing to maybe bring more farmers in town. You know, if, farmland comes up for sale, it might be more desirable for a farmer to move into our town if they have this exemption. And then, of course, helping out the farmers that are in town, because farming is not becoming more profitable business. So just be a kind of a boost for farmers and hopefully keep more farmland as farms and not going to developments.
So Jackie, what would that cover?
It would cover barns primarily, but also I think it covers living quarters for employees, not for the farmers themselves, or not for the owners, but if there was like seasonal housing. But yeah, primarily barns that are exclusively used for agriculture. I think farm stands would probably fall under that. There's a whole list on the state website of what would be included, but basically anything used for the farm operation.
And what would we be required, a local ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah, it would require a town ordinance. Ashford has one. Most of the other towns nearby, I believe, have one. The reason this came to my attention was because our new assessor assumed we had this program when she came into her position, and she actually sent out the forms for all the farmers to fill out, and then we found out afterwards that we weren't going to get the exemption. But yeah, so I think that would be
So it'd be pretty easy to get from another town a sample, a model ordinance that we could.
Kathy actually already found that the one from Ashford, and it seemed pretty straightforward. But yeah, it's fairly simple language because the state kind of already outlines what what would the towns would need to do and everything. There's a form already made up by the state for farmers to apply to the exemption.
And what I can do, if people are interested in, working further on this at our next meeting, I can send out the link for the state statute that allows it, as well as a copy of the Ashford ordinance that allows it as well. And then, we could discuss it further about what we might want to do in terms of suggesting to the selectmen about moving it forward to an ordinance.
I think it's worth pursuing.
I think so too. Is there any reason why we just couldn't decide to go ahead and take some preliminary steps to come up with a draft ordinance?
You mean tonight, or you mean at our next meeting?
I mean, just in principle, to come up with a draft ordinance to move this process along. I don't know how that would affect things in terms of the grand list year and that kind of thing, but I would assume, how that would the ordinance, when the ordinance would become effective, and that's something we could talk with the assessor about, find out, what grand list would be affected by the passage of an ordinance at this point, and so see what the timeline might be.
I know that the forms to apply to it would go out in October, because the other equipment exemption form goes out at that point, and the personal property forms. So yeah, it'd be ideal if it was we could get it passed for that time period, but
yeah. Oh, we certainly, if it's only March now, we should be able to get this going, especially since it seems fairly straightforward, as it's based on state statutes, and we would have a model to follow from another town. I would move
nothing straightforward in Willington.
Yeah, I should know better, right? Lived here a long time, long enough to know. Yeah. But I think it wouldn't hurt to bring this to see if we can within maybe by next month's meeting, or even now, just start the wheels in motion to present the idea to the Board of Selectmen, see what kind of reception we get. But I think it's really important because,
well, unless we want to make a motion that we pursue this, and then the link and then the sample ordinance that Ashford has at our next meeting. Yeah, I mean, that's basically this first step we could take tonight.
Sure. Get the ball rolling, and then we could take action on it at our next meeting. Just so move it along.
Yeah, I don't know, as far as drafting an ordinance, changing, using Ashford's or another town's as a template, if that's something that the town would want us to do, or if they need their lawyers to do that anyways. Well,
we could at least present them with a draft based on what exists in another town and works there, and I think things happen more easily if people have something to work with, rather than just say, we think it'd be nice to have this ordinance, without giving them the a model that we could, rather than just say, hey, we think it'd be nice to have this ordinance, but with having a draft available and making the process easier because you're presenting information up front, I think is very valuable. So
Yeah,
info.
I'd agree with Carol. I think if we propose a model, and then that's something that the town attorney could massage as he feels is needed for Wellington, and it does get the ball rolling.
And would
And
somebody, go ahead.
I had occasion to speak with the first selectman today, and he was talking about how he thinks that the Conservation Commission is the best commission in town. So I think we should feel honored and that we really get things done. So I think we do have respect from town leadership because we do make things happen. And Kathy deserves a lot of credit for that. But I think all of us have pitched in and worked in various phases of things. And we have gotten a lot done with very little in the way of financial resources or professional assistance. So
Right.
The ordinance from Ashford is, as Jackie mentioned, it's pretty straightforward, and it looks like it's really based upon the statute language. So I don't think it would be very difficult for us to draft, so to speak. I mean, we could look it over and see if there's something we would want changed. I mean, obviously the Ashford ordinance, for example, says the selectmen and town meeting of the town of Ashford. So we want to change that to the town of Wellington, for example. But how about, here's my thoughts is I certainly can send it out. It's very short. It's like 3/4 of a page, and the link to the statute as well.
I'd be happy to work on that, Kathy, because I like to poke around in the statutes.
Okay, that would be great. And then you can bring back the draft to us next meeting, Carol, and
or send it out for people to review.
Okay, well that might be even more helpful is just to send it out.
And then we'd be ready to. I won't guarantee to have it done immediately, but probably within. I could have it well before our next meeting.
Okay, and then perhaps we can move to send it to the selectmen or present it there to them. Any other comments or suggestions? That's a great idea, Jackie. Anything we can do to try to support farmers and farmland protection?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll try to think of anything else that would also be helpful. I've kind of lost touch with some of the farmers in town since we stopped doing the farm tour. Some of those farms have either changed their business or maybe stopped operating or had family issues. So but maybe I should make it a goal to try to reach out to more farmers in town, see what they think.
I think sometimes people don't appreciate. We had one former selectman that said there's no agriculture in town and blah blah blah, but if you look at what's happening with other parts of the country, the sources of our food some of them are going to dry up and some of them are going to wash away, and we can't count on a consistent supply from regions that have been productive farm areas forever, and any local sources of food are extremely important and to be supported.
Absolutely. I mean, and some of the farmland is used for, hay fields to feed livestock and so on too. So that's also important in town because these are areas that are often targeted for development or solar, farms and things like that. So I think this also would give us an opportunity to make a case, get something in front of the selectmen. And so people are more aware of farmland in town. We should probably be prepared to answer those types of questions. Like, what are we talking about? How much property is in 490, for example, talk to the town assessor and see how much is in farmland. Talk about the types of farmland. So
Jackie, does this apply only to this ordinance would apply only to the structures?
Yes. Yeah, because the land would be under 490.
Yeah, so it would be fairly easy if we had a list of the farms in town. It would be very easy matter to see by looking up the property cards what the assessments are for the outbuildings on properties, various properties.
Yeah.
So that that's the kind of information we could develop in support of the ordinance.
Yeah, because I think those questions will come up, as everybody's mentioning.
Right.
Do we have farmland in town, and how much farmland do we have, and what does this
How
mean?
much are we gonna lose in taxes?
Yeah. But, again, that's the kind of stuff you have to be prepared for when you go in front of the selectmen. And then we'll have to go to town meeting for the ordinance. So if we're supporting this, we'll have to be prepared. Okay, great. Anything else on that one? Okay.
Do we need a motion to pursue this with intent to take action at our next meeting?
You want to make a motion, Carol, and entertain that?
I'd rather somebody else do. Seriously, got to practice.
Do we? Do we really need a motion to take?
I don't know, or just we should, I guess we could just have a consensus to pursue this, and we don't be prepared to take action. But I think it's good to just move this kind of stuff along. Even if there is it's just better, not that this has come up to start working on it right away.
Yeah. Obviously we'll have to make a motion to move this forward to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
So that at that point, it'll be on record that we're supporting it. Okay. Great. Town-owned open space, and I, have a question mark, potential uses. One of our charges really as conservation. Is there something, Bob, you wanted to say? I hear.
Yeah. It's the rain or what?
Oh, are you breaking up?
Well, everybody's breaking up on my.
And he's frozen.
Yeah. Hang in there, Bob. You'll unfreeze. You're having trouble.
Well,
you're having trouble hearing us?
freeze my machine.
Yeah. If you have
You're
to,
freezing my machine, Kathy.
I think it's you, Bob, because everybody else is okay. If you have to disconnect at some point, just come
Listen.
back and I'll open up. I'll let you back in if you need to. Is somebody else in the house possibly on a computer? Is Christine on a computer?
All my connections are okay. Just that I've had some trouble with my phone the last few days too. So
Okay.
Sometimes just if you go off video and just have audio, that helps.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, good idea, Laura. All right, so town-owned open space. One of our charges as a commission is to do an index of all the open space and also kind of come up with a plan for the open space in town. And I thought maybe we could consider at our next meeting starting to review the open space map again and kind of look at some of the parcels in town that are town-owned open space and potential uses, whether or not they should just stay forest land, whether or not we might want to consider looking at some passive recreation use on them, those kinds of issues. And one of the reasons this kind of came up is a resident was talking to me about her son who plays disc golf and was asking about if the town might have any space for, Park and Rec or somebody in town to kind of establish that type of passive recreation. And then another thing that recently came up was there may be, well, how can I phrase this? There was someone that came to the Board of Select or to Pete Tanaka and asked about some town-owned property near the bus lot and whether or not the town would be interested in having some timber harvesting done on the town. on the property. And one of the parcels that's connected with that is actual open space. So there's nothing happening, you know, in that direction at the moment, but it just raised some of these questions about the other open space in town that's not affiliated with the parks. And I thought it'd be worth, you know, maybe talking about that at another meeting.
Kathy, the things that are currently protected are primarily the town common and the parklands. And the recreation, we've got the recreation parcel on River Road. And there's a small parcel right along the river that's a river buffer. But other than that, they're mostly things associated with subdivisions but that one parcel you were talking about is unusual in that most of the subdivision open space are lots that are part of the subdivision that are supposed to provide open space and recreational areas for people within the subdivision. However, the one you're talking about was put on for Deer Run Estates, but it's up. Actually, if you know the proposed firearm property actually was part of that parcel, and it's right behind the area where the school buses are parked.
Right.
And so that we could ask, but it's already on our list. I have somewhere in the file a listing of some other town-owned properties that we might consider asking to have protected as open space. And I'll dig that out. There's a folder somewhere in the file, I think, that says potential open space. And that includes a former landfill on Moose Meadow Road and some other parcels like that. So I think that's a place to start, would be with things that are owned that are not with the subdivisions. And theoretically, we're supposed to have an inventory of all open space in town, not just what we own and what's protected, but all open space parcels. And that's a major project to do that.
Yeah, but I know some of you on the commission are well aware that Carol did a lot of work. We have a wonderful file on each of the open space properties that are conserved open space, whether it's town owned or it belongs to a land trust or the state, or it's part of a subdivision offering. And we have the deeds. Carol's put surveys in there if they've been done. So we have some excellent records of all of that. But as you say, there might be other open space that's not protected in town that may serve as a greenway, it may serve as a wildlife habitat corridor, and so on. And this is the other thing that we probably want to look at again is start to, we've done this in the past, kind of prioritize parcels, even those that aren't protected, in terms of, maybe reaching out to landowners and thinking about, what parcels in town we might want to work harder at trying to protect.
Yeah, maybe you could start by looking for open land that are within the blobs, the salmon colored blobs on the map. Areas that we have identified for their value, various value as open space. Might be a place to start. And we still need to update the map, but it's I will get to that when life gets better.
The next plan of conservation and development is going to be due in 2028. So that's 4 years away, but it would be important for us to look at the natural resource inventory again and start to update that and the open space map, obviously. But I think if we could decide on whether or not we want to start to make some recommendations that go into the POCD about some of those areas of priority, that would be helpful going forward when potential development comes up in those areas. Bob, you were going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah. If I don't get cut off by my machine. I had talked to Peter Tanaka about the part of the Ruby property behind the field that gets mowed. I mean, there's probably 30 some acres in there, and I've walked that a number of times. There's some big trees in there, and I don't see why the town shouldn't be harvesting those just like regular landowners do when they have land in
Oh, looks like you.
off of Jared Sparks as well.
Yep. What parcel is that, Bob? You're talking about the
Across from
Fenton Ruby?
Ruby.
Yeah,
Yeah, on
The
across
hayfield.
on the other side of the road behind the
Right.
field. It goes up onto the top of the mountain.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It abuts Becker's property way in the back. I mean, that's a pretty good size area, and there's no reason why the town shouldn't be benefiting from timber harvest in there.
Well, and maybe Jackie has a lot of suggestions on this being a forester, but I think before we would suggest that, we would certainly want to have a forest assessment and a plan.
Oh, yeah.
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 But that costs money, as we know, to have a forest management plan in place. And so you'd have to have some resources too.
maybe it's a matter of the town being a little more proactive with some of their resources.
Mhm.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with, urging them to be a little bit more responsible of the resources that they have.
Mhm.
People sometimes talk about, well, with all the open space, we're losing tax dollars or we're losing income. Well, that's how people with forestry pay their taxes, by having harvests done.
Mhm.
And the town shouldn't be any different than that.
Mhm.
I don't know whether there's anything we could do, because that parcel was treated separately, and it's a separate deed, and at the present time it can be used for any municipal purpose. So there've been various things. The Cemetery Association looked at it. I mean, various, but nobody's ever done anything or treated it in any way, and I don't think it's a terribly good site for building anything.
No.
But yeah, but whether it's potential for us to be categorized also as open space, we'd have to look at the terms of the deed, the original deed, and also
Well, in that 1930s that they have, it's landlocked on Jared Sparks. So
yeah.
Yeah. So those are, just some thoughts, is starting to look at the maps again. And I could do is send out a copy of our current open space map. And then we can maybe discuss it. I could bring it up on the screen. The other thing, if you guys want to consider before I head to Vermont, is we could try to have an in-person meeting. And especially since, Laura has not been, if she's new to our group, it might be nice to meet in person. We could show her where things are at the town office building in case she needs to go in and get something from commission files and so on. People are open to that idea. I could certainly set something up in April. Because Laura, just so you know, I generally go away for most of the summer. And although I try to come back for commission meetings, sometimes I have to run them via Zoom from Vermont. So
Yeah, that makes sense to run them remotely if you're in Vermont than to come back.
yeah, unless someone else wants to run them.
Yeah.
So, but how do people feel about that? Start to look again at the open space maps, and because we spend a lot of time on park stuff,
the
but
run up to the next POCD, I think it's a good way to position ourselves to start that project.
okay.
So since I'm new, what does POCD stand for? I'm thinking Plan of Conservation District?
And
Conservation and development.
Development, okay.
Yeah. So every 10 years, the towns, state of Connecticut mandates that the towns come up with a plan. And, a lot of what it has to kind of follow along with the state plan as well. So that, you're in line for things like grants and things like, getting money from the state. But it involves, the two sides, the development side, so, economic development, as well as the conservation side. And I can give you a link. It's actually on the land use webpage. but I'll send you a link, Laura, to it. I'll send it out to everybody in case people haven't read it in a while. It's online. And you can look at the sections that are specific to open space and natural resources. And then we also came up with, trying to remember the year, but we have a natural resource inventory that's a little more detailed than what's in the plan of conservation and development. It was a document that we wrote together and then was appended to the POCD at that time. And I can send that out to people too. So, this is just, we don't have to do anything quickly. This just gives, if we start early, we won't have to feel like we're rushed.
Mhm.
I would love to look through that. Yeah. When Carol, when you're talking about the open land associated with subdivisions, is that like the wooded areas that you find maybe between clumps of houses in Wellington?
Well, that's things that was fairly common in the early days of zoning in Wellington, which didn't go in until 1970. And so there were a lot of subdivisions where they set aside areas. It was a common practice at that time, so that there would be one lot as part of a subdivision that would be open land. And
so
but-
more
and
of a grass area, like
it's just a section of the property that remains undeveloped, and it could be used for recreational or purposes primarily for the use of people within that subdivision area. And that was just something that was done very commonly. So we have a lot of those areas. That's most of it. So and then we have one rather unusual one where there's a that's not owned by the town itself. It's privately owned. There's an actual plot that is managed not by the town, but is owned by the neighborhood association in that subdivision, which is kind of interesting. But that was where the most of that stuff happened in the 70s. When subdivisions were first when zoning first came on board.
okay.
So some of those properties just have easements on them, and some of them are dedicated space to the town. So a conservation easement means that it cannot be developed in the future, but it's still owned by a private owner. And so the town does not, we can't take action on that property. So unless there's something stated in the deed specifically to what some of the uses for that property could be. We had a case recently where there was a conservation easement on a portion of a property that was being logged. And we had to look at the conservation easement for part of that property to see if it also allowed logging to be done on that portion. So that came in front of the commission. So, and now the town we have subdivision regulations that require the developer to give a certain percentage of the land that they want to develop to the town, or they have to give money in lieu of that. So it's kind of, it's a requirement because the developer's putting some, there's, on the system, when you build a lot of houses and so on, you're going to have some kind of pressure on the town to provide other services. And this is kind of a quid pro quo, if you will. It's to give the town back something because of that. So it's either some land or money in lieu.
Okay, thank you.
And the easements vary from fairly substantial parcels to just preserving some area alongside a narrow strip alongside a waterway, the water course. So they vary a lot in size, and we don't really have much control over that. because easements are put in place usually by planning and zoning, sometimes in the name of the Inland Wetlands Commission. So even though they're called conservation easements, we don't really have, we aren't the ones that are putting the easements on the property. And technically, probably most places don't list those. We've chosen to put them on the map because I think it's helpful to land use agencies to be able to look at the open space map as they're considering uses for adjacent parcels, for example, to see how those would relate to other open lands or other protected properties as they're looking at potential land use changes. The map is on the wall in the meeting room at the town office building, the latest map, if you want to take a look.
Well,
And I'll send it out digitally, so but it won't be as big as the one in the town office building.
So when we talk about total acreage, it probably should not include the most of the easement properties. There are easements to the town. There's one easement to the state, and there are easements, several large easements to Joshua's Trust, as well as a large property owned by Joshua's Trust in town, up on Blair Road.
Okay, any other comments on any of those issues? Any other new business that anybody wants to request be put on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on to old business membership. So as we know, Board of Selectmen did approve Laura's appointment, and her term will go, because she's filling a vacancy for Pete, when Pete was here, till December 1st, 2025. And Laura, I'm going to put together some information that we usually give out to new members. It's just kind of a list of Conservation Commission responsibilities per statute. And I can get that out to you.
that'd be great.
So
Kathy, there are in the file some of those manuals that we had. There were several copies of, people don't have them. I mean, they're somewhat outdated, but it was a handbook for conservation commissions, published by CACOWIC, which is the Connecticut Association of Conservation and Inland Wetlands Commissions. And we do have several copies of this thing. If anybody is interested in reading more about what the statute says about what conservation commissions are supposed to do and that kind of stuff, we do have, I think, 4 or 5 copies of that in the file that we could provide. At one time, we had a handbook that was given to every new member of the Conservation Commission. Unfortunately, a lot of those went missing when people who left the commission and didn't return those. But it depends on how deep in you want to get. But as I said, it was published a while ago, but it still deals with a lot with the statutory obligations and things like that of what conservation commissions are supposed to do. We could get for you if you're interested.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful.
we can do is, if we do end up meeting in April, we can, give that to anybody who wants to as well. Okay.
I can get it to anybody.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Property management, Fenton Ruby Park, a few updates. There was a very large tree that came down on Julia's Trail. It was about 24-inch diameter. Ooh. And Chris did go out and we cut it up so you can at least pass through it. It's, made an opening in it. I asked.
Where was that, Kathy?
On Julia's Trail, up on the ridge portion, where the ridge is, up on that portion. Of course, it was like, the furthest end of the park.
Of course.
Walk out, with chainsaws. Yeah. So, and Chris got the gas-powered chainsaw got pinched because we're working with wedges and all this other stuff. So we had to walk back to the truck to get the electric one to get it out. Oh, brother, we got our exercise anyway.
I guess so.
we had talked about the Boy Scout Bridge and looking at replacing the decking and the railing. And before we were going to do that this year, we wanted to make sure that the structure underneath was sound. So I did ask Ralph Toulis, who's a licensed professional engineer, to come out, and he did so voluntarily. He didn't charge us to go and inspect the frame, and he said the frame looks really good, and the only thing we need to do is replace the top decking and the railing. So, and that's not, urgent, but it probably should be done this year, especially since we have the ARPA funding that we have to obligate by the end of the year. So,
yeah. And that was constructed in, I believe, in 1999, which is the same year my daughter graduated from high school, by somebody in her class. So,
that was
a while ago. My daughter, who is now 43,
wow,
we're about to be.
So we got 25 years on that bridge. We'll have a cutting, a renewed opening ceremony. I did call Ken Fluitt, who's the Boy Scout leader, and asked if the Boy Scouts might be willing and interested in helping us with replacing the top of the bridge. And he said he would bring it up at a meeting and get back to us. So, and then Carol has approached someone about being a trail steward for Ruby Trail and the Ashford Link Trail. And what we do, Laura, is in the park and also the open space properties off of Mason Road, we have volunteer stewards, trail stewards, who walk the trails once a month. And then if they're finding an issue that they can't resolve, a tree's down, it's too big for them to handle, or there's some problems with a bridge, they get in contact with the commission, and then we, arrange a plan to take care of whatever is going on for that trail. But so we do look for volunteers, and we were short one volunteer for the Ruby Trail. I don't know. Are you familiar with the park, Laura, with Fenton Ruby?
Fenton Ruby, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, and how about the Mason Road properties?
I know where that is, but I don't think maybe we hiked it once.
Okay.
Yeah, not as, I do know where the trail is, but I'm not that familiar with the trail itself. Fenton Ruby, we visit a lot.
Yeah, great. So we have 4 trail stewards for Fenton Ruby, and then we have 3 stewards for the Mason Road properties, because we have the Knowlton property, the Talmadge property, which has 2 different trails on it. Okay. So, and if you, again, I can send you the information. If you're familiar with the Conservation Commission's webpage, you can go on the webpage, and then on the left-hand side, there's a menu, and you can bring up the trail maps for all the park properties and the Mason Road properties there.
Yeah, actually, the new steward I met because he joined our church choir. Our choir is lucky enough to have 4 tenors, and he's one of them. But he lives on Lustig Road and has lived in town, I think, about 20 years, and he walks his dog every day. So I asked him on Sunday whether he'd be willing to do this, and explained that it wasn't really a lot of work. He said, well, he walks it with his dog every day, and he thinks that he and his dog would be very happy to take on this responsibility. So he's a very nice guy, and so I hope that'll work out well. But he's right, comes down. So that includes the access to the Ashford property, to the extension to that. So we'll see how that goes. But I think there was no hesitation whatsoever. So I'm going to pick. I think Chris will be nice. But,
yeah, and his name is Chris McLean.
Chris McLean.
Yeah. Okay. Well, please tell him we said thank you, and
oh, I will.
that's wonderful. The other thing I wanted to bring up is whether or not we want to try to set a date. We don't have to do it tonight, but maybe we could send around some potential dates for late April or May to have a work day at Fenton Ruby Park. We can do some more work on bridges. We can reblaze trails, those kinds of things. Is that something people would be up for?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
I also wonder, Kathy, would it make sense to have, is there we don't seem to have work days as much on the Mason Road properties. Is there any need for that, or is just?
There, the only project that I would foresee on those trails, Carol, is on the new Split Rock Trail. There's an area there where we probably could use a boardwalk because there's a little intermittent stream that crosses part of the trail. And that wouldn't take a lot of work. We would probably just need hands because we can park fairly close on Mason Road to where that is, that part of the trail, and then just walk the boards down. You know, we certainly could do that. I think there's more going on at Fenton Ruby. We have more boardwalks and things that still need replacing.
Okay.
So.
And we probably want to wait until the Mason Road is in a little better condition, especially if we're going to be tracking building materials back and forth, because they've put down a lot of stone because of the wet roads, the wetness, and the rock that they were not able to get the kind of rock that they usually use. So what they're using is quite large chunks of rock and quite sharp and jagged, which presents some concern about, and that's in the whole area where the parking is, and so it presents some concerns about potential risk to people, you know, trying to cross the road to get to the trails on the other side and that kind of stuff. So you know, been in touch with the selectmen. They have to wait for the things to thaw, and then they'll supposedly they'll disappear, but it's very jagged, sort of trap rock stuff with but so they're gonna have to wait for the ground to get soft enough so they can bury the stone in. But at the moment, I would recommend, my husband said, I wonder how many people's tires are going to get punctured. Some of them is really nasty looking. So.
All right. And then, so I will send out some potential weekend dates then in April and May and see, you know, what the consensus is when the majority of us might be able to get out to help. If, you know, if there's some people that can't be there and you want to do something like, you know, make some muffins or cookies or something, we always, you know, usually at the end of our workday, which is usually, you know, 2 or 3 hours, we usually have a little bit of a gathering near the parking area and, you know, share some food and cider and stuff like that with our volunteers.
Yeah, I will attempt not to do anything to fall and break anything right just before I'm supposed to make cookies this time around. So.
Well, you make the best applesauce cookies ever, Carol. So those are always a big hit. Anything else about Fenton Ruby that people wanted to bring up?
Just one thing.
Yeah.
I am down to 20 copies of the Taylor Pond Trail guides.
Okay.
And I can go and copy some more of the green. I just put about 12 of the green trail guides in the kiosk. So I'm empty of those too. So I can go copy those. I'm not sure. Are you using the green paper at the town hall for Mason?
No.
Okay.
No, we're
So
making.
I should have
yellow.
We're making the color map and with the text on the back.
Okay.
So we're using white paper for those.
Okay.
So I should... Kathy sent me an email to pass on to Chris McLean that is a color map of the Mason of the Taylor of the Fenton Park trails. So I'm thinking we might want to think as we do make more copies, it'd be really nice to use the color map inserts now, because they also have the QR codes if people want them. But so yeah, if you can get me one of those, Kathy. I don't have a color printer at home. So
well, you know, Carol, I know you had mentioned that in an email to me, and I was just wondering about it because I'm just going to hold this up. This is the current map. Well, if you can see that. So it's black and white. It's small. We usually cut off the bottom so it fits inside of the trail brochure. And the color map The only thing about that is it's going to be more expensive, so to speak, to make the colored maps and put them in. Plus, you can't cut off the bottom because you cut
Yeah.
off the rest of the map. So I'm not sure that it really matters. This trail guide to me is actually pretty easy to look at. That's my personal
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay,
thought on it.
just raise the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. The color ones, I mean, I like the color one, but I think it's much busier. I don't know.
Anyway. We can do
Right,
that.
so I should go ahead and copy some more. Are there new hours at the town hall?
Yes. They're not
Okay.
open on Friday. They're open, I believe, till 6 on Monday. And the rest of the week, they're open until Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday till 5. But you can check on the town clerk's website.
Okay.
Yeah, just go to Welcome to Wellington and click on one of the town clerk
Okay.
and assessment's office or whatever, and it gives the hours. And it's till 2 on the rest of the week, 8 to 2. I think it is.
No, they changed that, Carol, when they stopped. They're closed on Friday.
I know they're closed on Friday, but they're
Yeah.
open late on Mondays, and the rest of the time I think it's 8 to.
So,
It's 8
so,
to 4. 8
so
to
no
4.
7 o'clock.
I think it's 8 to 4.
No, check the website because
Okay.
I think they're open later than 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 4.
Yeah, it's 4. It's 4.
4? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, not 5.
That's 4. Yeah, and it's 4. And it's they're open till 6, I think, on Mondays. No,
Okay. I won't get there until 2 weeks. I won't get there next week. I have meetings, so.
and Nora,
Yeah,
I
6 on
have
Monday.
some. I think I've got about 15 or 20 at home, so I can get those.
Okay.
I get those to you, or just give me a call when the box is empty, and I can drop those off.
Okay. So I stuffed the trail guides, and then, like I said, I have 20 more. I don't know if you need to order more of those of the
Booklets?
Taylor Pond guides.
Yeah, I would prefer not. Those are more expensive.
Right. But I took all of the Taylor Pond guides, so there's no more in the
no more in the
file.
In the file.
Correct. So I have 20.
Because there's a box of them. There were a lot of them in there.
I took them all.
You took them all of them?
I did.
And we're down to 20?
Yeah.
Because we just got 100 of those, so maybe.
So last time I ran the green trail guides, I took the box of Taylor Ponds. So
Yeah.
and I haven't been there.
Printed or not as cooperative as they used to. It's changed hands, and they're not as generous to us in terms of.
We do have money though, Carol, at least,
Yeah,
that's the
sure.
good news. And that, we could certainly put some money toward that if we find out how much they would want per guide.
Yep. Yeah, we can get some more. Actually, they really, I mean, they're charging us $1.55 for those. So the original people did them for $1. And then when we said, you're not charging us enough, they went up to $1.05 or $1.10 or something. But but yes, we could get one. But we did get 100 of those just last June.
Right.
Yeah, but
should we go to
hope that people are not going to take them away.
Well, we don't say that they have to. We say please return them, but
Yeah, but it's not, and there probably are a lot of people who walk the park frequently, and there is stuff in there about seasonal things and what they can see in different seasons. So maybe people are taking them away because they want it, to have one that they can take with them the next time they go. So that's great. Yeah, we can get some before the end of the year.
We can print color downstairs on that copier.
I know. We can.
Why don't we?
With the trail guides are multiple pages, and they need to be folded and stapled, and heavy paper on the cover and that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure that's something that we want to do ourselves.
Yeah. Well, for $1.50, that's not a bad deal, really.
No, it's really not too. It's really not. And and the other thing is I've talked with Donna and I need to check in with her again. But we have been using the color copier for the Mason Road trail thing that has the color map on one side and the text on the back in black and white. And I found because I got a quote from the guy at Anything Printed about color copying, and his price for color copying was quite high, a bit higher than what Donna told me that would be to run a color copy on the town's printer. So I can check with her just to make sure. I told her to let me know if we were breaking the bank on running color copies, and I don't think there are any issues with that so far.
Carol, how many trail guides did we buy last June? Was it 100?
It was 100.
Can we maybe make a motion tonight to buy another 100? We'd be talking about $160. You said 100.
Yeah, well, see how, unless he's decided to up his, yeah. But I do think, Bob, that it's not as easy to do that ourselves as it is to just run the brochures that are just regular paper. Yeah, I can. But yep, it was June last year that we got those.
It seems like we have plenty of money left in the treasury, so I don't see where it's a big deal.
Maybe we should stock up on this stuff. Maybe we should
we're talking about, pennies, and we've got hundreds of dollars left in our budget.
Sure, exactly. So maybe it's a good time to do it. Also, let's see. Yeah, we should. Maybe we should check and see on our paper supplies, because if we have to order colored paper for the Fenton Ruby brochures, because you can't get the 8.5 by 14 at Staples. You have to they don't have it. They don't stock it in their stores. You have to order that online. Mm-hmm. You can do that through the town account, I think.
So as far as the brochures, not the brochures, excuse me, the Taylor Pond guides, I'd like to make a motion that we purchase 100 of those.
Sure.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Yeah. Why don't we get 200? We have the money. And then we won't have to be revisiting this every 6 months.
Well, okay, so that's fine. The only question is, we do still have over 3 months left of the fiscal year, and if we have, how much do we say we have left? We have 750. So the 155. So it would be $3. Assuming he doesn't up the rate, it would be over $300. So it'd be a good portion of what we have left. Although we probably should be using ARPA money for some of the bridge repairs, because we need to identify the uses by the end of this calendar year, right? And actually spend it by the end of 26. So if you want to make it.
My reticence about getting 200, Bob, would be this: is that if we used approximately 100 per year, I know we're not to June yet, but if we decide to change that guide, like within the next year, that would kind of be a waste, because we might want to revisit that guide. It is pretty old. So I'm thinking maybe get 100 now, and then look maybe in the fall if we want to start working on it through the winter to revise it, and then maybe have it printed again. And maybe we can even make it smaller or more compact, or something that's a little cheaper in the long run. We can kind of look at that. Some of the posts that are out there, again, I think we have to revisit it.
Yeah, I think because there have been some changes in the park, and that one was a modification of the original one based on the Barbara Clark work that Barbara Boston did, and as modified, we had to. So But as you say, it might be a time to ground truth it again to see if everything what's in there actually represents what's happening in the park. It's not that old, but
And then there was mention of QR codes.
Right.
I know at a previous meeting.
It might be something where we can think about the markers that are on top of the posts could have QR codes. And that way people could just scan them rather than using paper out there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a thought. I kind of like that idea. I'm like you, Kathy. I'm thinking about locking in too much at this point, just to use up money, when we might want to make modifications.
All right, let's go for the 100.
Okay, so
100 and maybe keep in mind that we might want to put QR codes on the posts and hope nobody steals those. Or the posts that go there on.
okay, so all in favor of purchasing 100 Taylor Pond trail guides, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like everybody said aye. Oh, so moved. All right, and moving on to Knowlton Preserve. I don't have any issues to report about any of the trails out there. Things look pretty good. Town development. Bob, you have any updates for us on planning and zoning issues or?
We're working on the small business or home business situation in town. We're trying to rewrite those. And just for everybody's, we were talking about farmland. It's interesting that East Windsor moratorium on any more solar arrays. That's farmland needs to be farmland if it's going to get any kind of a tax break. I was out there 2 weeks ago. I went past the fertilizer plant, and across the street from the fertilizer plant was the area where they had proposed the gun range. The same time we had a range issue here. That gravel bank has been closed and regraded. They're gonna, I talked to Mike last night and I asked him how many hundreds of acres is in that solar array, and he says about 800. It's going to be the largest solar array on the East Coast.
So I don't know, this is maybe you all know more, but because I look at those solar arrays and I think, why aren't we putting them over parking lots at like malls and grocery stores rather than on land? And
cost and return.
It's just, because you could put that over and people could even charge their cars under them.
They do have them in some places. I've seen them in Massachusetts, a couple of.
Yeah, the sad part is that 90% of those solar panels are being produced in China.
So, I mean, we don't have any regs about solar panels in town, do we, that you're aware of?
No.
Okay.
No.
I mean, I know they were proposing to put solar panels on that development that's out by the truck stop.
Right.
That parcel that's right on the highway.
The basis of that is the solar array with the chargers.
Right.
But that's a 3.5 acre site.
Yeah. And that was already zoned industrial anyway out there. But I mean, that might be something to keep on our radar because certainly, farmland is definitely at risk. Anything else, Bob? Anything on that Economic Development Commission? They were looking to do their strategic development study. Do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, they kick-started that. They had a tip-off on that, I believe, about three weeks ago. They got it going, but there hasn't been much posted about that. And so far as public forums and such to get input from the townspeople. I think that's still coming. And I think this economic development study is probably, it's probably what we're thinking about for our part of the POCD, because we really haven't had that strong of a planning section of that document. I mean, I think we've done an awful lot with conservation end, but I don't think the business or the business potential has ever really been planned out. And I think this plan will do that. And we'll see how involved we're going to get in and when that portion of it's going to kick in.
I think there's a tendency for but commissions that are both planning and zoning get tied up in the zoning stuff and don't really have as much time to put into planning, and that's a perennial problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay.
Well, it's the makeup of the community too, Carol.
Yeah.
You know, how zoning works. We haven't got a charter. We haven't got a town planner. All those things, you know, work in planning.
Yeah.
I think direction.
So I remember one year the auditors
residents and what's possible and what's not possible in town.
But the planning, the planning function takes a lot of time, but it's difficult for the land agencies to find the time to do that, as well as manage the issues that come before them. There is an inland wetlands meeting on Monday, Kathy, that you might be interested in going to. One of the things they got are the water quality assessments from Love's. They are that come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're discussing some possible revisions to the forestry plans.
Yeah, those reports from Love's have been quarterly. They've been doing that since they opened. And Mike typically has been sending them. They're pretty, I don't know, it's all data about what they collected and what they found in the water. There hasn't been anything of real concern, They're just continuing to do that as they're required to do. And then the forestry regs, as I understand it, what they're looking at doing is putting something in there about noticing abutting landowners. So if somebody comes in with an application to do a timber harvest, right now there's certain things that say in the regulations you have to notify abutting landowners within a certain time period. But I guess there were some concerns because sometimes they do that, but there's no public hearing. So timber harvesting is considered a right that people have on their property, and you can't take that right away from them. So there's no public hearing about it, but they do have to make sure that they're ensuring water quality. So that's why inland wetlands reviews the applications, but they do have to let the abutting landowners know, but then so the landowners get noticed about this application coming up before inland wetlands. They go to inland wetlands and they can't speak because it's not a public hearing. So it's been a frustration. And also because sometimes the timber harvest may not start for, let's say they come in, they get approved application and they don't start the timber harvest for 6 to 8 months. So, when is the best timing to let the landowners know that are abutting where this timber harvest is going to be, particularly because they really don't have any way that they can publicly oppose it.
And there is an application for a timber harvest also coming before them, but Polster Road and Mahaliac Road extension.
Yeah. And so, all of these meetings, any of us can go to. We certainly, they are open to recommendations from Conservation Commission. We don't necessarily have to go through the public hearing door, so to speak. If there's something that comes up we have a concern about, we certainly can let them know what we're thinking or recommendations as a commission. So I couldn't just be at that meeting and speak for the commission during, and plus they do have public time to speak, but you cannot speak about anything that is on the agenda. So that also makes it a little daunting. But thanks for the heads up on that. Collaborative organizational news and communication. Nora, have you had any time to touch base with Steve Ozier again about the hike?
I have not chatted with him since last meeting.
Okay.
I know he was going to be away too.
Okay.
So
didn't know if you'd come up with a potential date for that hike at the park.
And then you had sent him the information about the possum visit.
Yeah.
Which I was hoping we would have gotten at our school, but the woman, it seems pretty intense, but it sounds like a good program for probably the amount of kids that would show up.
Yeah, it was just so the commission knows, a friend of mine, well, actually, Ellie Lowell, she went to a program in Mansfield. It was given by a group that does rehab for possums. It's called Ferncraft, and I believe they're out of Woodstock. And so I just sent that information along to Steve at the library as a potential program. They bring in, the possums, the kids can touch them. They learn about their life, and they're an interesting animal because of the way they raise their young too. So.
And no rabies, right?
No, I don't believe that they are susceptible to it. Yeah.
My cats hang out with them in the backyard, so I guess they're good.
Okay, well, as that develops, let us know.
All right, I will reach out to him within the next couple of weeks. I know he said he was going to be away, so.
Okay. And then last time we just mentioned that James Callahan, the director of Park and Rec, had contacted me about maybe working together on a hike that Park and Rec would co-sponsor. And I think Carol had suggested last time that we look at doing something on the Mason Road properties. So I will probably invite James to come to our next meeting, or maybe our May meeting, depending on when he's thinking about, is this going to be a fall hike or whatever. And, he can come and speak to the commission about it. Any other collaborative information people want to share? I don't have any other news. No.
No.
Moving on to regional pollinator pathway initiatives. I did contact Connie Badan from the Girl Scouts and asked about what the Girl Scouts could possibly do this year to maintain the pollinator garden at Fenton Ruby. And she said that they would probably be able to help once a month to do some weeding, but would not really be available to do any watering. So I know last year Patty was doing some of the watering because she's at the park a lot. She's not here tonight. We can check with her and see if that's something she can continue to do. The other thing Connie mentioned, that if we want to have some annuals put into the pollinator garden, and it's something that the commission wants to purchase, that the Girl Scouts would be willing to install them. So that's something.
And if we went to Tri-County, they would probably give us a good price. They're wonderful working with community organizations, and when they first set up the garden, they gave us an incredible number of plants, both perennial and annual, for the pollinator garden, and they're just really great folks to work with.
Yeah, and I think last year too, I was just thinking, Jackie, you had given them some mulch, right? Or you had brought some mulch and mulched it? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I brought just wood chips for mulch, and I spread it out.
Okay. Would that be something you'd be willing to do after they, if they were going to install some new plants?
Yeah, I think I could probably do that again.
Okay. Do you have the material available, or?
Yeah, we've been getting, I don't know if you guys have seen all the tree crews out on 74, we've been getting all of those wood chips. So
Oh, hmm.
mountains of wood chips.
Everywhere you look, they're cutting down trees.
Yeah.
Except they don't cut down the ones that are really likely to fall, like the ones that are already dead.
Yeah, there's been a lot of ash die off from the ash borer. It's sad. Okay. Any other things on pollinator pathways? I don't have any new information from the regional group. I think that they were looking at, some people were going to be pre-planting some seeds, and, there might be opportunity for some free plants. Anything else anybody knows about pollinator initiatives going on? I know there's been some bills they're looking to have sponsored at the state level on banning neonics, if you're familiar with what those are. Those are pesticides that they use on golf courses and, in other areas that can kill pollinators. They're not designed to kill pollinators per se. They're killing insects that they don't want, on the grass or on plants. But when they're using them that widespread, they're also killing a lot of pollinators. So they're trying to get them banned in certain areas in the state of Connecticut. So if you're interested in that, you can go online and see, it's something you can write to legislators about. Something we certainly could think of as a group to write to the legislators too, if anybody's interested in, drafting some type of a letter. Open space opportunities, Burma Road. That's still a work in progress. We have had some conversation with two of the landowners that live on that discontinued portion of Lustig Road. Just so background, Laura, there's a 7-acre parcel that's on the eastern border with the Fenton Ruby Park. I don't know if you've ever walked up the old part of Burma Road that goes toward Ashford. You kept, okay. So it's up in that area. It's on the east side of the park. And a landowner has been trying to work with us for over a year to see if the town would like to purchase this property. And it has an old camp on it, and it has a pond on it. So we had an engineer look at the dam on the pond to give us some idea of whether or not that was of concern. Basically, there's trees growing on the dam. And so his recommendation would be if the town was to purchase the property that we remove the trees and keep those areas mowed. The old camp is a hazard. So if the town owned the property, we would have to demolish that camp so that no one could go into it and get injured. And the only way to really access this property is to come in from the Ashford side and use a portion of a discontinued road, the end of Lustig Road. Have you ever been out by the Langhammer Trail in Ashford?
No.
Off of Lustig? No. So you'd have to come in from that direction. And there are 3 property owners along that discontinued road. 2 of them have access on the portion of Lustig that's still open and maintained by the town of Ashford. There's one person that's further down the discontinued portion that doesn't live there. It's an absentee landowner that lives in South Carolina. And we've been trying to reach that person to see if they would be willing, along with these other landowners, to at least, come up with a written agreement that if the town did purchase this property in Willington, that they would allow the town of Willington to use that right of that old roadbed to get in to the property. And the attorney decided that the town of Ashford should also be involved with this right-of-way agreement. So I did meet with the first selectman, Mike D'Amato was there, and we talked to her about whether the town of Ashford would be agreeable, and she seemed to think that that wouldn't be a problem. But we're still trying to work with one of the landowners who's really been on the fence about working with the town. So that's where that's at.
How long have you been working on that?
We've been working with the landowner for a year at least. She lives in Maryland, and she would like to sell it to the town and see it added onto the Fenton Ruby Park, which we think is a worthy thing to do. We think it would be a good addition. We did have the property appraised last year, so we had a general idea of what it was worth, but it wasn't clear about this whole road situation of how we would access it. And so certainly the property is pretty landlocked. I don't know if anybody else was to ever try to buy it, what they would be able to do with it, because they would certainly have the same issues we're having with trying to access it.
Plus, the power company discontinued the electrical line quite a while ago. So anybody buying the property would have problems with, getting utilities and that. So it's not the kind of property that anybody's going to want to jump at. It's got a lot of issues for any private owner.
But the pond on it, and there's also I guess you would call it two ponds. One is kind of like a swampy area, and then it drains into this man-made pond. Really nice wildlife habitat. And again, it would just kind of close. If we could get that property, then we could really ensure that nobody would be going to try to access Burma Road as well, that portion of Burma Road in the future. So, because in the past, kids have been down there with ATVs and things like that. So
we talked about possibly putting a gate across the road where the town boundary is.
Right. So we'll keep working on that. And
Lustig is off of Tinkerville?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you followed it all the way out, you'll see that it kind of turns and goes toward the Wellington border at the very end of Lustig.
I'm not sure if it shows it here. I'm just on Apple Maps.
Oh, okay. Yeah, depending on what map you're on, because it was discontinued, it doesn't always show well.
Yeah.
If you look at the GIS maps, go to the assessor's site and look at the GIS maps. It's the
better there.
property owner.
I was looking at this earlier and it's still on my computer. Let me show you here. Can you guys see this?
You can, yeah.
Can you see this map that I brought up?
No.
No? Okay.
No,
Hold on a
I don't
second.
see your screen yet.
Okay.
Anyway, the property owner's last name is Petix, Petix. And if you go into the assessor's site in Wellington, you can bring up the map and you can search for things by the owner's name.
Let's see if I can share this
Oh,
screen.
there you go. You're sharing now.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
here's Fenton Ruby Park in purple. Okay. Here's the parking lot right here where you park on Burma Road. So Burma Road goes through the park, and then you get here close to where the Ruby Trails are starting in here. And there's some rocks here. And then this part of Old Burma Road, which has not been maintained for years by the town of Wellington, goes up a hill toward Ashford Line. This is the Ashford Line here.
Okay. All right. I see how that works.
And then this parcel right here in yellow is the parcel that we're interested in. And you can see here's Lustig Road. So Tinkerville's up here somewhere. And then it comes, Lustig comes in here. It touches, so we actually have a little part of the park that's in Ashford. And we run this way along Lustig Road. And then this was the last portion here that was discontinued, this part in orange. But there's a property owner here, or a private property owner. There's one here, and then there's one here. You don't see the boundaries here, but it's kind of split like this here. And this person here and this person here, who both have houses on the road, are agreeable verbally that they would allow, they would give the town right of way across this, because once it's discontinued, people that have property that bound it still have right of way access along it. So they would give us their right of way access temporarily to get in here to remove the camp and also take the trees down on the pond, which you can't see on this map.
Okay.
So this is what we're looking at, is this property here.
So the access you need from Lustig Road is just temporary to clean up the property from the camp and all, and then you would not need to use that anymore? It could be just a trail? Is that
Well, it may even be that the landowners don't want it, you know, to be publicly opened. It would just
Yeah.
be for the town to come in here, and people could still access this part of the park by walking up the
Right.
old Burma
Yeah.
Road. Yep. Because I
Kathy?
don't really think they want that to be public access.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it would just be for going in and cleaning up and making the property safe, and then it would be accessed just through hiking trails.
Right.
Okay.
Kathy, you talked a bit in the past about using that also for access for potential management like timbering and things like that. Has that been discussed with the property owners at all, or we're just talking about
I
a
think
one-time thing?
Yeah, well, I think that we're initially, you know, just kind of opening up that can with that conversation with them about it at least being a temporary access. I don't think that they're really excited about having it be something that the town uses at least, you know, on a regular basis. If we ever wanted to do a timber harvest, we might have to go back and ask them if they wanted to allow a right of way again.
Okay, yeah. I just remembered that you had mentioned that as a possibility in the future. So yeah, I agree with you. If we can get them to agree to giving us access in order to get to do what we need to do to make it really useful for us, that would be fine. That's
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you've gotten that far.
Yeah, it's been a slow process. Luckily, this landowner here is willing to kind of work with us because she really would like to see it be dedicated to the park. And also, as you said, I mean, she doesn't have a lot of options right now. She's in the same boat. You know, she'd have to come in this way, or whoever purchased the property would have to come in this way, because this road there's no way that anybody could get up there. So. All right, and let's see, moving on, because we're going to talk about the historic parcel on Jared Sparks Road. Let me pull that up. So here's Jared Sparks Road. This is, let me just make sure I'm in the right spot here. What road is this, Bob? This is, I'm trying to read it.
I still see the, oh, there you go.
Oh,
Here you go.
this is Cosgrove, and this is, I forget the
Cosgrove here. Yeah. What's this one?
Cosgrove here.
Pravanik? Is that?
Yes.
Pravanik. It's
Okay.
Pravanik comes off of
Yep.
74.
So we're over here on 74. You come down Jared Sparks Road, you cross this intersection, and then that property, which used to be the Joseph Sparks farm, so Jared Sparks' father, the
Yes.
parcel, as I understand it from talking to Mark Palmer, the town historian, the original parcel for the Sparks farm also included this parcel here, which is now owned by the town. And this portion here is owned by a private property owner who received this when this parcel here and this parcel here were subdivided and given to each son. This is now in an estate. And we talked about this a little bit last time, the idea of at least initially trying to get this preserved, permanently protected as a town-owned property, since it is owned by the town. In talking with Mark, because he's done a lot of investigation on this parcel and this parcel, because the property owners here on Jared Sparks Road had gone to the town assessor and said that they believed that this portion here that the town owns, they believed it was part of this parcel and that it was something that they owned. So the town assessor asked Mark Palmer, our historian, to go back to try to figure out what had happened here. And from what Mark was able to discern, this was taken over by the town because somebody didn't pay taxes. But it was very nebulous about where the boundaries of this parcel were, because there was never a survey done. There's no survey on this property either. And Bob, correct me if you understand this differently, but this is how I understood it when I spoke to Mark. So we don't really know, although on the tax assessment map, the boundaries appear to be here for the town parcel. There's no deed that states that. It talks about these bounds in terms of things that we can't really substantiate. There's no pins. So what would have to happen is that the town and the person that owns this property would have to come to an agreement about where the boundaries are, right here, where they abut. This is a little clearer, this boundary and this boundary, but this boundary here is not. And Mark said it could be, it could be up here, it could be skinnier and up here. We don't really know. So that makes it a little hard. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think one of the things that is, with the property, with that portion that's been logged twice, I think that they're comfortable with where the boundaries are and where the logging has taken place the last two times. And one of the points that Mark had made when the property, he had bought 62 or 3 acres. And the claim that they own that 19 acres wouldn't hold water, because when you look at the two halves, that how the father split it with both sons, the sum total of those two parcels is
Oh, you're frozen again. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I know, I keep going.
It's okay. But so what you're saying is that
60,
we're pretty confident that the town owns 20 acres. That this parcel basically is owned by the town. The question is, where are the boundaries of the edges of it?
and these parcels that were divided up so long ago, a lot of times the deed references are to trees that have long decayed and fallen into the forest or whatever. It can be very difficult to know exactly what the bounds were of the original parcel.
Right.
I will say that the first selectman expressed to me some enthusiasm for our looking into acquiring this property today. So,
well, it has historic significance because Jared Sparks did live there. He, as far as I understand it, he never owned any of the property, but he did live on it. And there is, an old path here, the old Sparks Road, I think, as Mark was calling it, that, there's some foundations in here from the old Joseph Sparks farm. There's some wells. It has, the stream on it, which is really nice. I mean, it would be a nice parcel for the town to acquire, and then we wouldn't have any concerns about where the boundary is, because it would just all be enveloped in one fell swoop. All this parcel would be together again. It'd be back to the original farm property. So the question is rather than trying to make this protected open space, or because we just can't really say where the boundary is, should we just try to send a letter of interest to the property owner to see if they might be interested in working with the town for the town to acquire this?
yeah, and once if we could get them to agree to let us acquire that, then we could take action to request that the selectmen place a permanent easement open space easement on the town parcel.
Right.
It might be better to wait to do that after any potential acquisition takes place. On the privately owned parcels.
So, Bob, are you still with us? Can you still hear us?
Yeah,
Okay.
it keeps breaking up, and I keep breaking up too. Mark's feeling better now, so I think maybe we could touch base with he and
Oh.
fellowship dinner
Mhm.
and lay out some plans insofar as when we can meet and start that.
Okay. So you're saying
Uh,
after the dinner?
Or at the
well,
dinner?
at the dinner,
Oh,
we can talk to them and see what works for all of us insofar as getting together.
I won't unfortunately be at the spaghetti dinner. I'll be away, but I'd be
Oh, okay.
happy to get together, another day.
Yeah, I can talk to Mark about that. Well, just email him, see what works for him, and
Okay.
let me know.
Okay. So is that
So,
go ahead.
so this all started when I presented CIP, our CIP request.
Yep.
Stephanie Sumner's reached out to me and said, just kind of off the cuff, gee, Bob, wouldn't that be great if the town could give ourselves a gift of the old Jared Sparks farm for our 300th anniversary?
Ah,
Yep.
that would be nice.
That's how this whole conversation really kicked into higher gear.
Yeah, it would be nice.
So is that something that the Conservation Commission as a group thinks that we should pursue then, is maybe just sending out a letter of interest to this property owner and asking them if they would like to perhaps work with the town to see if we can work out a deal to acquire the property, and we can talk about its historical significance, its connection to other town-owned property, and also protected open space here, which is the Heck property.
Right.
As an
That's it.
easement.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's
that's an
this
easement to Joshua's trust on it.
on this one. So this will never be developed, but it's owned by the Heck family. But it's permanently protected against development. Yeah, it's too bad, that this is so nebulous. I don't, I hope that this landowner didn't get upset or frustrated with the town in terms of not being able to, they felt that this was theirs. And in working with the town on trying to figure that out, I hope that they just didn't get upset about the whole deal, because
Well, I think
yeah.
both brothers felt that way because
Hmm.
I spoken with a brother that lives up in Vermont, and I just think that this sets the record straight after Mark's going back into the records
Yeah.
and more or less saying your dad bought 63 acres, and with both 31 or 32 acre parcels, the two equals what your dad bought. He did not buy that 19 acres.
Right. Yep.
I think, is there a record, Bob, of the tax sale? Because I think that was acquired by the town, and
That was in the 1920s. It was in the 1920s or
yeah, and the records are kind of spotty.
And Mark said that it wasn't even clear who the town got this from because there may have been some mix up on a name. Two people with the same last name. So yeah, it was,
Yeah, that's
but
typical.
he did a lot of research. He actually documented it all too. I'd be happy to send out the information if people wanted to look through that. So, all right. So, Bob and I will work with Mark on this and maybe kind of come up with a draft letter.
seems to have faded off right now.
So, what's that, Bob?
I
Okay. So anything else on this property?
No,
On
I
this
think
parcel?
I think it would be a great property to go after.
Formulating the letter, I think everybody should probably have something to say about it.
Sure. If we draft something, we can bring it to the next meeting, maybe. I
Sure.
can send it out and we can discuss it. Is that agreeable to everyone?
It sounds good.
Okay. All right. And then the third parcel I wanted just to mention under that is the property that's adjacent to the town transfer station. I know Carol had mentioned she was wondering about the property the town had acquired that was supposed to be used for the salt shed, and whether or not there was some talk originally when Christina Malhouse was the town selectman about putting an easement on part of that property. So I did talk to Troy from Public Works and asked him about that property. He said they still have the salt shed request in to CIP, so there's no plan yet to be able to build it. And he's not sure, you know, if it'll even get funded this year. But until they know that they're going to place a shed on this property and where it'll be located, it would be kind of hard to decide where to put the easement on it.
But I think the impression we were given by the selectmen at the time was that once they define where the salt shed would go, that the remainder of the entire remainder of the property would be under an easement, rather than having at some point I think you talked about the town engineer drawing setback lines from the water course and all of that. Whereas the impression I had was the intent was to just define where the salt shed would go, and then the entire rest of the property would be protected as open space.
I think the thing is, though, they can't, although the engineer might have come up with plans at the time, Carol, we're talking about quite a few years. And if things change, the state may change what it requires for the salt shed, you know, or if the town decides it has to build a bigger salt shed than originally was designed back in, you know, how many years ago when Christina was the selectman. I mean, what are we talking, right? So the only thing is I don't think the town would be willing to tie up that property right now because we don't know.
No, I'm not suggesting that we tie it up right now, but we can, as things progress on the salt shed, I guess all I'm suggesting is that rather than having one of these weird, oddly drawn things that's based by the engineer defining setbacks from the water course or whatever, that the whole entire portion, the remainder of the parcel after the land that's being taken for the salt shed would be just put into a lump, you know, an entire block open space. Because it is along that nice brook there.
Yeah. So I mean, we certainly can keep it on the radar screen. We'll know way ahead of time if they're going to approve the shed and then where it would be located, and you know, that'll have to come.
This is on the long-term thing. By the way, the property that abuts Benton Ruby Park along Moose Meadow Road, I noticed has sold, where the family, the people that owned it both passed away last year. And there's been a transfer of that property. So we have a new neighbor.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Park. And that's the one that's the long, narrow parcel that's to the southeast side of Burma Road. It's about 4 acres, but it's a long, skinny parcel that goes along the road and is all on the frontage on Moose Meadow.
Oh, okay, great. Well, hopefully they'll use the park and enjoy it. Anything else anybody wanted to bring up under any potential open space opportunities? Okay.
Nope.
All right. Wellington Wire, I did submit an article for the commission since nobody had volunteered. I basically just updated one that we had used in the past that talks about the trails at both Fenton Ruby and Mason Road. The next Wellington Wire article will be due at the end of June. If anybody is interested in writing a one-page article, it can be about any kind of conservation topic. It can be, you know.
I'll do that. I can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Laura.
yeah, that's a time I can say yes to.
Okay. Yay. So, you're familiar with the Wire, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Again, Marilyn had written one for the last submission that was on beavers, for example. And sometimes, you know, if we don't have any other information coming out, we just kind of put information about the trails there. So, but feel free to, you know, come up with something that seems of interest.
Okay.
Communications, we didn't get an email to the Conservation Commission. I haven't had any other communication from anyone. Is there any other business that people? Oh, I'm not sure what that is. Is there anything else that people want to add to old business tonight? Okay. Is there anything you want to add for next agenda? You can always email me.
Okay.
All right. Next meeting will be April 17th. And how do people feel about doing that one in person at the town office building? It would be, you know, same day as we normally, the Wednesday at 7.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think
I'll
it'd
be
nice
away
to
that
have
week.
it'd be
Vacation
nice
week.
to have an in-person meeting for a change.
Okay.
Who's gonna bring the chocolate?
I'll bring chocolate.
Sort of a tradition. The commission, being non-regulatory, we can be a little bit more relaxed in how we do things. So we have we have a fairly laid back type way of running our meeting, as you may have noticed.
So in person at where would it be?
Well, I'll let people know. Typically, we're down in the basement, that large room, but I know CIP has been using that almost every Wednesday. So they might be done by April. They should be. But I'll check and see if we can reserve it, and I'll let people know. So
that other little room, there's another little room around the corner.
Yeah.
That's
Board of Ed.
Yeah, Board of Ed. That room is we've met there before. It's because there aren't that many of us, so we fit nicely in that room. So,
yeah. So it'll be somewhere downstairs probably, Laura, but I'll let everyone know. All right. All right. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Let's do it.
Okay. Second? I saw Carol's hand up. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Have a good week. Good month.
Have a good week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
bye.
Bye.